something is definitely happening in our country right now from coast to coast. Where that something leads us, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows. But what it says, that growing numbers of Americans are not happy with Donald Trump and the federal government he leads, and that growing numbers of Americans refuse to be silent about that, is undeniable right now. There are a few of the protests that broke out last night on your screen now. This is one in Minneapolis. There were protests in other cities like Dallas, Seattle, and New York. They, of course, follow the shooting death of 37-year-old mother of three, Renee Nicole Good. This right here is a moment of silence that was held by the NBA basketball team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Watch.
We're saddened by the tragedy that occurred yesterday in our Minneapolis community in the loss of Renee Nicole Good. Our thoughts are with her family and everyone affected, and our hearts are with our community as we hope for healing and unity during this challenging time. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you.
One basketball fan shouting there, "Go home, ICE." Others applauding. But the protests weren't just about what happened in Minneapolis. There was another ICE shooting Thursday in Portland, Oregon. Federal agents shot and injured two people. Both those people were taken to area hospitals. The Department of Homeland Security said that this shooting was also in self-defense and that the two injured people were suspected gang members. And again, that is what they're saying. That may turn out to be true. We don't know right now. Here's what the mayor of Portland, Keith Wilson, had to say.
Portland is not a training ground for militarized agents. When the administration talks about using full force, we are seeing what it means on our streets. The consequences are not abstract. They are felt in hospital rooms and living rooms, in the quiet moments when families try to make sense of what happened, what is happening. We know what the federal government says happened here. There was a time when we could take them at their word. That time is long past. That is why we are calling on ICE to halt all operations in Portland until a full and independent investigation can take place.
The Oregon Attorney General has also announced a formal investigation into the incidents in Portland today. The results of that investigation, as the mayor said, may find that what the federal government is saying about the shooting is true and accurate. That is always possible. But what's clear is that in this moment, the Trump administration has not earned the trust of anyone encountering these crises in their cities or their states, especially given their reaction to what happened in Minneapolis. The Trump administration has made claim after claim after claim that is being disputed or outright debunked, while making comments that suggest the outcome of any investigation they're doing is already determined, decided, which may be the case because only federal authorities have been allowed to take part in the investigation into the shooting. Here's what Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey had to say about that.
Donald Trump said that Renee ran the ICE agent over. Don't take my word for it. Don't take their word for it. Watch the video from every single angle. I mean, the ICE agent walked away with a hip injury that he might as well have gotten from closing a refrigerator door with his hips. He was not injured. I've seen worse injuries from doing that. And so give me a break. No, he was not ran over. He walked out of there with a hop in his step.
Mayor Frey also reiterated his call for local authorities to be allowed to participate in the investigation because he says the federal government cannot be trusted. Minnesota officials have launched their own probe and called on residents to submit whatever video evidence or other evidence they might have. That call came just hours before this video from the scene today was published by a local conservative-leaning Minnesota news outlet and then amplified online by J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States. It is cell phone video taken by the agent who shot and killed Renee Nicole Good. Here it is.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Whoa!
Community and a country searching for answers after the shooting death of Renee Nicole Good by ICE is where we start today. I want to bring in former top ICE and DHS official Jason Hauser, also joining us, political analyst, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller's here, and with me at the table, host of Politics Nation, president of the National Action Network, the Reverend Al Sharpton. We'll get to the video in a moment. I want to start, as I have so many moments like this with you, about the thing that is intangible, the thing that we can't predict, but the thing that you sort of intuit and lead and understand what's happening in the streets of American cities, near where the shooting occurred, far from where the shooting occurred. How do you assess this moment in terms of the public's reaction?
I think the public reaction has been, first of all, it's organic, not organized by any group, National Action Network, NAA, nobody. These are people that are outraged, and I think that is the real elements you need to build a shift in where the country's going. Because we're seeing people that don't normally march say, I'm going to hit the streets. This is absolutely unacceptable. And we're seeing now, it started with us raising the question of race, then gender, then LGBTQ. Now you're dealing with just somebody that's just there, and they feel they have the right to do whatever they want to do. And as you'll get to this tape they dropped today, what is that supposed to show? That people can be shot at because other people are cursing at people? The fact that these protests have been nonviolent, showing a higher level of morality and peaceful coexistence than federal officers and ICE. The contrast shows you what you need to see. The people that's angry and righteously angry as they are, have not broken windows. They've not burned down cities. I remember 5 years ago, Nicole, when the George Floyd killing happened and the family asked me to come into Minneapolis, we had to first deal with the people were burning down stores.
I remember.
And then we got to the rallies that were nonviolent, and then I eulogized the funeral. That didn't happen this time. Yet the president of the United States and the head of Homeland Security said they were rioting and that they had to stop a rioters. What riot? Show us the film of the riot since you've got these tapes. Where's the riot that you say that they were doing? Where's the violence that you said was threatening your life? I think that the more they talk, the more they expose themselves. I always quote a wise man told me, a fish wouldn't get caught if they kept their mouth shut. The more they talk, the more they expose how, in many ways, they disregard the human and civil rights of citizens of this country.
When you look at as you point out, they're not organized by No Kings, which organized the 7 million
Right.
people in the fall. These are organic. They're breaking out in cities, as I said, far and near. ICE is in cities and towns all over our country, and the animosity toward ICE is so visceral. I mean, we can't play a lot of what people say about ICE because it usually is a one-syllable swear word that starts with F.
Right.
And so that is the sort of the most oft repeated chant against ICE by a lot of protesters in a lot of these cities. But what does it mean that the harder they sort of clamp down, not just on people in this country illegally, but on people protesting their treatment of people in this country illegally? They've thrown pepper balls at faith leaders. They shot and killed Renee Nicole Good. 2 people were shot in Portland. What does it say that as their tactics become more brutal, more and more people are taking to the streets?
I think that is saying that people are not going to sit back and allow them and their brutality to intimidate them and to take the country. I would be concerned if they were clamping down and we didn't see a reaction. The fact that we're seeing a reaction and a disciplined reaction, that they're not being provoked into anger, they're angry, but they are disciplined, I think is a good thing, and I think it's a bad forecast of where they want to go in this country. At the same time, we're seeing these organic marches and the movements forward. They clamp down, saying we're going to not even share evidence with the state. I mean, whoever heard of that? The state of Minnesota will have nothing to do with this. We're going to do this. At the same time, the president's sitting with the New York Times talking about, I have as much power. The only thing that can stop me is my own morality. Like, there are no rules. There's nothing governing me internationally or locally. And I think people are saying that is not the kind of government that we want and will allow to happen. And I think what happened to Ms. Good and the two that were shot in Oregon becomes an impetus for a lot of people to say enough is enough.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The government's lies are getting even more brazen about who Renee Good, the 37-year-old mother of three, was and how she died. No one could watch the numerous eyewitness videos of her death and in good faith make the kinds of claims the Trump administration has been making and continues to make. That she was committing domestic terrorism, that she ran over the agent who's now recovering in the hospital, threatening his life, with a maroon Honda Pilot that had stuffed animals flowing out of the glove compartment box. Those claims never rang true. That much was immediately obvious, and it became even more obvious today with the leak of a new video from the confrontation with ICE that led to the shooting death of Good. What we got today was a cell phone recording captured by the man who killed her. It's the first look we have gotten of Renee Good alive and then dead. It was first obtained this afternoon by a conservative website. Hours later, MS Now got its own copy from the Department of Homeland Security, a copy that is roughly 10 seconds shorter than the leaked version and omitted a few key details. So I want to play the longer version for you now, and, as we have been the last few days, caution you that it is incredibly disturbing.
Change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking veteran. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
Whoa!
Fucking bitch.
That is how Renee Good lost her life. That is what the government claims was domestic terrorism. So what did you see? Again, I'll let you decide. Here's what I saw. The masked, armed ICE agent who has been identified as Jonathan Ross exits his car. The first thing he sees is Renee Good's dog in the backseat of her Honda. How many domestic terrorists have you seen taking their dogs for a drive out on their operations? It's worth noting that this portion of the video is missing from the version released to us by DHS. You might ask yourself why. Perhaps they don't want people seeing Good's dog in the car. Then we see Ross circle the vehicle while recording, holding his phone to do so. He walks in front of the car, makes eye contact with Renee Good behind the driver's wheel. This is where she speaks to the man who will end her life, saying, "I'm not mad at you." Ross then circles to the back of the car. He records Good's license plate, and here you can see the rear window stickers for national parks and kennel clubs on her Honda Pilot. He is verbally taunted by a woman who is believed to be Renee Good's wife. After that exchange, she goes to get in the passenger side of the car. Then agents yell at Renee Good to get out of the car. And at this point, Ross again walks in front of the vehicle recording Renee Good. He still has his phone out. The phone is out even as he pulls a gun. The last thing she does is move the wheel to the right before she starts to pull forward. You can see Ross lowering the phone as he fires 3 shots. After Renee Good is shot, after her car rolls towards an electric pole, and Ross walks alone toward the car, you can hear a voice on the video uttering the words, "fucking bitch." We cannot confirm with certainty it is Ross's voice calling the dead woman a fucking bitch. That video was obtained by a conservative website with close ties to the Minneapolis Police Department. Minutes after it was published online, it was retweeted by, I guess, the guy who's doing this full time, Vice President J.D. Vance, who told his followers to watch it because, quote, the realities of Ross's life was endangered and he fired in self-defense. So they seem to believe this video makes their case for them. Vance is using it to suggest Renee Good was not, quote, an innocent woman. And his sustained campaign to demonize a dead mother of three is so bad his religious faith is being challenged. The National Catholic Reporter yesterday, columnist John Grosso wrote, quote, the vice president's comments justifying the death of Renee Good are a moral stain on the collective witness of our Catholic faith. His repeated attempts to blame Good for her own death are fundamentally incompatible with the gospel. Our only recourse is to pray for his conversion of heart. He's right, it is a moral stain, but it's not the only one. Despite already giving their theory of the case, the Trump administration is still refusing to share evidence with state or local authorities. In an exclusive interview with MS Now's Josh Einiger, the district attorney of Hennepin County, where Renee Good was killed, appealed to the feds to see reason.
I think it's in the best interest of all of us, including the federal government, to just be really transparent. Just allow the BCA in on the investigation to at least see what kind of evidence that you have, because I think we would all want that thorough information, the investigation, before we make a decision.
Now, the Trump administration, I don't think, wants that. Probably because the entire enterprise that brought Jonathan Ross and the rest of those ICE agents to Minneapolis in the first place is fundamentally based on a lie. And it's the lie that Donald Trump ran on. It's the lie that they've continued to push, that the Trump administration is clearing out the most dangerous criminal migrants in America to make those communities safer. I want you to look at this analysis because it's pretty important. According to analysis, the available data yesterday by political researcher Austin Kocher, almost all of new ICE detainees held since last September, 92% have no criminal convictions. Those masked men with the guns running roughshod are picking up random people. They're rounding up car washers and daycare attendants, construction workers, sometimes standing down beneath an unfinished house and waiting for them to come off the roof. And American citizens, we should know. American citizens who were just in the way or looked too much like an immigrant, or who have protested out of a desire to protect their neighbors from the incursions of those same masked henchmen of the state. And that's all because the Trump administration has decided to harass and abduct and sometimes shoot people who have committed no crimes and pose no threat, like Renee Good. In a statement to Minnesota Public Radio, Renee Good's wife, Becca, said this today. Renee lived by an overarching belief. There is kindness in the world, and we need to do everything we can to find it where it resides and nurture it where it needs to grow. Renee was a Christian who knew that all religions teach the same essential truth. We are here to love each other, care for each other, and keep each other safe and whole. On Wednesday, January 7th, we stopped to support our neighbors. We had whistles. They had guns.
We got serious stuff all over the place. Doesn't mean the only way to deal with it is 100% serious or somber or even, self-important. Jon Stewart is a master at deconstructing, debunking, and sometimes defenestrating all kinds of political figures in our midst. He's been doing it for a while. He has the energy that some might lack in this second Trump term. And remember how strong Jon Stewart was all the way back in the day on the Iraq War and the neocons. And we want to make sure you see what he's saying this week about Donald Trump's new war plans.
And remember, the reason MAGA was so high on Donald Trump was that he was the guy who wasn't going to get involved with this kind of anymore.
We do not seek war. We do not seek nation building. We do not seek regime change. And we don't want to be the world's policeman.
We don't want to be. Those days are over now. No more American boots on the ground.
We're not afraid of boots on the ground.
No more rebuilding other countries' infrastructure.
We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure.
Well, it's not like we're going to be running someone else's country.
We are going to run the country.
There you have it. And one side that Donald Trump is concerned about how all this is being covered in the real world of fact-based journalism is that for all the attacks and the fake news and the failing New York Times, he took time this week, having seen how this Venezuela stuff is playing, among other things, to give Time a lengthy, big interview to the New York Times, which pressed him on where his power could be limited, given the claims he's making abroad. Here's that exchange.
Do you see any checks on your power on the world stage? Is there anything that could stop you if you wanted to?
Yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop, and that's
law.
very good. I don't need international law. I'm not looking to hurt people.
Do you feel your administration needs to abide by international law on the global stage?
Yeah, I do. I do. But it depends what your definition of international law is.
It does depend on that, but what we're seeing is someone who kind of casually revels in the idea that it's his mind, his unitary power, and nobody else, which is a clue to why some of the policies that don't make sense, even by his own past claims and what Republicans say they want to do, why all of that is shredded if it's really just about him aggrandizing his power. The U.S. overnight seized a 5th oil tanker, if you're keeping track, linked to Venezuela. According to the administration, Trump is threatening other countries. Here he was today on Greenland.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
Donald Trump suddenly very interested in international policy and his foreign powers in a way that he hasn't historically been as interested in. Remember, following all the Iraq debacles, he was always talking about America first and not being so focused on other countries. Remember, though, he's had a string of losses. Healthcare vote recently, Republicans rejecting him. Epstein vote. November elections. And many of his wannabe revenge indictments flailing in the courts. So losing at home, he is clearly trying to do more abroad. He's just met with some oil executives about Venezuela, but they're wary of these plans because they don't think it could really work. One insider says they call this empanada. Everyone makes promises and never actually does anything. A little bit of a foreign cuisine reference to calling Trump's bluff. Quote, my impression is it's empanada all over again. These are the people who might make money off the man on your left if they believed that he wasn't going to act through their acronym like the tasty South American treats on your right. Meanwhile, in the real economy, hiring is slowing. This builds on the inflation and economic problems of the first year. In 2025, the U.S. added under 600,000 jobs. Biden actually did better than that. And not since 2020, in the pandemic, has hiring slowed this much. Exclude the pandemic, and the first year of this Trump second term is the poorest year for job creation since the financial crisis of 2009, which, of course, was the worst crisis in decades. Do you see a link to how bad Donald Trump is doing at home and how much he wants to talk about his power abroad?
No, I'm talking about the now former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, who was reverse iced and imported. He was actually imported to a jail in Brooklyn.
Reverse iced and imported. It'd be funny if there weren't so many lives on the line. I want to bring in, hey, nice to see you. I want to bring in Jason Johnson, professor, MS Now analyst. Jason, I'm going to put back up something that affects a lot of people's lives here in America, or America first, if you will. The job hiring is slowing. It's actually worse than in the Biden era, when, by the way, it wasn't great. And if you take out the pandemic, which is a once-in-a-century black swan event, it's the worst since 2009. Do you think those type of problems, plus Trump losing in November off-year elections, have anything to do with his sudden newfound interest in flexing abroad?
Oh, absolutely, Ari. The thing is, Trump is recognizing that he actually has limitations in the United States. He can't just do whatever it is that he wants. He can't just push out whatever policy he wants. And whether it's the jobs, whether it's the economy, whether it's ICE, he's running into those issues. What was most interesting in a lot of these articles, this interview that he did in the New York Times, where he says, the only limitation on me is my own morality, right? When it comes to foreign policies, basically his foreign policy is, nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up, right? He thinks he can do whatever it is he wants to do. And the issue is Trump is actually more free to do what he wants abroad than he is in the United States. And that's where the interest comes from. But even that's going to have limitations over time.
Fat Joe reference?
Fat Joe reference.
Yeah. I mean, your audience. That's a beat favorite. Shout out to Joe. All the way up. And here's where I have to separate the way it is from maybe the way it should be. Legally, presidents have the highest, largest unitary power abroad. And there are people who can debate that. We've had big debates, Vietnam, Iraq, and others, where people look at that and go, well, I guess Nixon can go into Cambodia too? We don't get anything to say about this? But this is an area where Trump has found the button. But with all due respect to people who say Trump is the worst at everything, other presidents have also used this button to great damage. And so it is both true that he technically has this power. Our Supreme Court is not in the business of the 9 of them getting on a plane and stopping down in Cambodia and saying, you can't go another line. It's just not how it's ever worked. And yet the flip is that a good thing? I think of a lot of Americans, regardless of ideology, look at that and say exactly what he ran on. It was appealing to MAGA to say no more of the forever wars he's now risking.
Not only that, Ari, he lied about what he was going to do abroad, but also it never accomplishes anything. Like, we can go back to the first Trump term. He said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. It didn't end up happening. He bombs Iran. He says they're going to stop what they're doing. He does tariffs. He goes to Venezuela. That quote's really interesting, where it says, when it comes to oil in Venezuela, everybody makes promises and nobody does anything. And it also makes me think of Taco, which is Trump always chickens out. For a man who's been so hostile about South America, it seems like South American food is the best way to describe his foreign policy, because nothing that he promises ever ends up actually happening. And the public sees that, and the rest of the world sees it too.
Yeah. So do you believe that this distraction effort will work in the long run? I mean, he's clearly threatening other countries. We don't know what actions he would take, but even if he uses, as I mentioned, what are legal powers, do you think this will work on the public?
Oh, it's not going to work on the public at all. I mean, Ari, this is the thing. We're Gen Xers, right? We remember the Gulf War, whether we were kids or in high school, whatever it was, and we were all being told 30-something years ago, oh, yeah, we're going to get this oil. It's going to make gas cheaper. Trump is trying to make that promise now, and it's still not going to work because American oil companies have said, hey, we don't want part of this timeshare. It'll be $100 billion in investment in order to upgrade the oil facilities in Venezuela. That's before you get to the moral and political question as to whether or not you can control that country. Even John Bolton is saying this was a crazy idea that they scrapped in the first Trump term. So the foreign policy world isn't going to appreciate it. His government is going to appreciate it. And it does nothing for voters and makes nothing cheaper and nothing better for anybody here voting in the midterms.
In the past, where there was some form of shooting or an officer-involved killing that took place by federal agents or U.S. Marshals or beyond that did have local and state entities in control. By the way, we're not even talking just about full control here. We're talking about being at the table. We're talking about an investigation that includes the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And for those that may say that we have a predetermined outcome, we are not the ones that are conducting the investigation. The investigation would be conducted by the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They are well equipped to do it. They have a long track record of doing thorough investigations and, by the way, coming to results that both saw culpability and a lack thereof. As far as the legal mechanism to do so, I'm not going to jump the gun here and give you a mechanism to prosecute through the county or the state before we actually know what that legal remedy looks like. But I can assure you there is potential there that is available. Go here and there.
Talked about presumptive determinations that you feel like the administration has made. They've also been saying, kind of looking ahead to the weekend, what do you think of the administration saying ICE operations will continue? They're sending Border Patrol agents in. They're actually doubling down.
Well, I think what this does ultimately is expose the truth. What did they say when they came in here? What has this administration stated as their reason for coming into cities around the country? The reason that they've stated, safety, driving down crime. We'll let our statistics speak for the trajectory. They are clearly driving crime up. Up until last night, we hadn't had any shootings in this city other than ICE. Our city is safe. Our city is welcoming. They are making it less so. And so it is a massive issue that they continue to exert their presence in Minneapolis and beyond. By the way, it's not just our city that is feeling the impact. I know that there are a number of legislators behind me that can speak to that. This administration has also said that they're very pro-business. That's also garbage. I don't have a specific statistic other than anecdotal evidence to point to, but they have had a massive and detrimental impact on a number of corridors throughout our city, including like 80% reductions in customer base along East Lake Street and many other corridors throughout the city. And so bad for business, bad for safety, bad for unity, bad for democracy, and bad for this republic. We want them out. Let's go over here and then go over there.
If there is no independent investigation of this shooting, what would the effect be?
So the question is, if there's no full independent investigation of this shooting, what will the effect be? I mean, I think it further undermines trust in government. You know, the quickest way that you erode trust in government is to refuse to enforce and hold accountable people on laws that you pass. There are laws that are around this. There are standards that are around this. They should have no concern about having a full and transparent investigation here. See where that investigation leads. Look at the facts, collect the evidence. And the fact that they are for some reason concerned about having other, by the way, police involved, other law enforcement involved through the BCA, that is wildly concerning. We're not asking to be at the table in this investigation here. We do think that people that have some willingness to see things clearly are. Well, I think we got to get to a point here where we're not trusting everything that they're saying, and I think you guys they're there at this point. I mean, I think he also asserted that because you work at the federal government that you somehow have absolute immunity from committing crimes. That's not true in any law school in America, whether it's Yale or Villanova or anywhere else. That's not true. If you break the law, if you do things that are outside the area of what your job responsibilities require, and this clearly seems to be at the very least, this is great. At the most, is what you heard people say back here. This is a problem and it should be investigated. Yes.
A couple questions for you. First, have you heard personally anything from the Trump administration or the president himself? And also, the administration has pointed to some of your comments right after the shooting as turning up the temperature in this city. Yesterday, we did see some protests that, turned volatile at times. There was pepper spray, there was tear gas. Do you stand by your statements to telling ICE to...
Yeah, they stand by their statements. Do you stand by your statements? Yes. I stand by my statements. We stand by our statements. I'll look back to what I said. What I said was it was reckless abuse of power. Yes, it was a reckless abuse of power. I said that what the narrative that the administration was pushing in the immediacy following this shooting was garbage and false and BS. It was. I stand by every one of those. And, this notion of inflammatory comments, I mean, come on, guys. You know, I dropped an F-bomb. They killed somebody. Which one of those is more inflammatory? I'm going with the killing somebody. I'm going to do like a couple more, and then I'm sure there's some other people behind me too. Yeah.
It's clear that Renee Nicole was not just trying to look this officer, but she actually ran him over. J.D. Vance has promised this officer absolute immunity in this case. Is there any hope?
Yeah, that seems, the way you put it, it's pretty grim. What you just said, and I think, to repeat for everybody, Donald Trump said that Renee ran the ICE agent over. Don't take my word for it. Don't take their word for it. Watch the video from every single angle. I mean, the ICE agent walked away with a hip injury that he might as well have gotten from closing a refrigerator door with his hips. He was not injured. I've seen worse injuries from doing that. And so give me a break. No, he was not ran over. He walked out of there with a hop in his step. And so we just got to get to the point where we're at least operating from, hey, this is like, we're looking at it on the video screen, this is what we're seeing, can we all see that it wasn't run over? And then, you know, yeah, J.D. Vance, this concept of absolute immunity is pretty bizarre.
How concerning is that, though?
Very concerning. It's extremely concerning. That's why we're asking for the BCA to be part of the investigation.
We have time for about 2 more questions. Does someone have a question for someone other than my boss?
I'm just wondering if it makes sense for the timeline here, like how fast moving this is. Is there a point at which the state loses access to the investigation?
Do you want to answer that? I don't know the exact timeline, but I imagine the answer is yes. Go for it. Go for it.
Jamie Long, State Representative, Minneapolis Representative. There have been instances in the past where the FBI has shared information weeks after or even months after. It would be much better if the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension were able to be involved right now. There is time-sensitive evidence. There are memory lapses that happen if you aren't able to interview witnesses right away. And so they were invited by the FBI to participate in the investigation jointly originally. And then for some reason they decided to walk away. We are asking for their full participation as the FBI intended originally. They were clearly told by somebody that they couldn't participate anymore. And when you have the President of the United States, the Vice President, the FBI Director of Homeland Security already coming to conclusions, and then they are told on the ground that they can no longer be involved with local investigators, that causes a lot of concern. And to us, time is important, but they should be involved in the investigation at any time that they're allowed to be.
So the question is whether I can talk or describe about interactions with Ms. Gooden, who she was as a person. It would be completely inappropriate for me to do so because there are other people that really knew her, and I did not.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
There's breaking news from Capitol Hill, where former special counsel Jack Smith will appear before the House Judiciary Committee and for a public hearing. MS Now's Michael Schnell is following this for us. What more can you tell us, Michael?
Yeah, so this news coming just within the last 2 hours that, as you mentioned, Jack Smith, the former special counsel who handled those 2 investigations into President Trump into alleged election subversion during the 2020 election and the mishandling of classified documents, will appear publicly up here on Capitol Hill before the House Judiciary Committee at some point. The 2 parties are still working out a specific date, but this is a very significant development. We know, as we have just mentioned, that he testified for around 8 hours deposition before the House Judiciary Committee back in December. And then afterwards, we learned that throughout that conversation, Jack Smith a number of times defended his investigation, his final report, and made the case that President Trump was at the center of that plot to overturn the results of the 2020 election. But again, that was a private deposition. deposition. We only know what was said because of a transcript that was later released and because of a video that was also released at a later date. But now we are learning that Jack Smith is actually going to be in front of this committee publicly, live, before the cameras to field questions about those two investigations. And now this is significant in a sense because when the House Judiciary Committee started looking into Jack Smith and asking for his testimony, Jack Smith had insisted that he wanted to speak publicly. He wanted to do it before the cameras in a public setting so all could learn and hear his answers. But Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee, led by Jim Jordan, had insisted that he first appear behind closed doors privately to answer questions in that setting. I will note that's typically how it works. You answer questions privately and then they bring it publicly. Now, though, we're hearing from Jim Jordan this morning and his team that Jack Smith will be here in person. Smith's team sounding very happy about this development. I want to read to you a statement that came from his lawyer saying, quote, Jack has been clear for months. He is ready and willing to answer questions in a public hearing about his investigations into President Trump's alleged unlawful efforts to overturn the 2020 election and his mishandling of classified documents. Now, again, we still don't have a date for this hearing, but you could assume that it will be a very big deal up on Capitol Hill. We see some of these Republicans who have been going after Jack Smith for years coming face to face with him before the cameras. It'll certainly be a likely fiery hearing when that finally happens.
That may be an understatement. That is going to be an extraordinary moment on the Hill. Michael Schnell, thank you so much for that breaking news.